Hey everyone. So this is the last video in the sequence about how to work with Cinema 4D. I will be adding some additional videos that talk about how to create more unique geometries that you can peruse if you are interested in. But this one will be the last one that kind of walks you through the general process of and structure of the program. So I have I have got this to work satisfactorily. I'm into it. It looks nice. I have previewed it by pressing the render view, and that is looking the way that I like it. So now what I'm going to go ahead and integrate it now into After Effects. So by default, if you select on your Cinema 4D layer, it's going to bring up this dialog box. And you can see that it's previewing including the grid and frankly just I'll turn my spotlight off. The color isn't as rich, the reflections aren't quite as bright. So basically this is, it's a draft. It's not the full final resolution. So in order to get the full final resolution here, what you want to do is go up to this render settings of the Cinema 4D and go to render and select not a draft of the viewport but the actual final viewport. And you can already tell that the color is more rich and the reflections are going to be more robust. Now, since it takes a while for that to render, I've actually already got it right here and it's already done, so I think that's looking better. The grid is gone, the blues are richer, the reflections are going to be robust. Now this is actually still pretty small. This is like 60% of its actual size, so we're still really not even seeing it. So, but at any rate, I think it looks good. Now, this is going to, what we also want to make sure is that in this view, in the past, in this tutorial, we have, or I have encouraged you to take these render settings and have them down at draft. I'm not going to mess with these because I've already got this rendered at 51%, but make sure that you have your viewport not at 1, which is generally what you do to work, but that it's up to at least 51%. You don't need to go all the way up because that just will eat up your render time and your computer more than you want, than it's already doing. So just have it to 51% and that should do it. I'm going to say OK. So this has been, the Cinema 4D renderer has been updated to 51%. It has been, it's displaying the viewport on the renderer over here. I think we're pretty good. So now this is also going to be an extra step. We are not going to render it directly to the media encoder, simply because it's hybridizing two different softwares. We're going to first encode it in After Effects. So what we will do is go to File, Export, Add to Render Queue. This is the legacy or the original way that After Effects manages rendering. We're going to go ahead and do this, and what it does is it brings up another tab down here in your timeline. Now, this is actually a very high quality render. The only problem is that it will tie up your computer or tie up your After Effects while it's rendering. But it does allow you to blend these two software together. So let's just say we can go here. The first thing we want is best settings. We just want to keep all of those. The next we want to go to output mode and we want it to be lossless, but we want it to be QuickTime, but we do want, under video output, we should go to format options. Its default output is animation, which isn't actually very helpful. We want to make our format options, we want to output it to Apple ProRes 22. This should be an acceptable option on PC as well, because it's in the software, not in the computer. So let's select Apple ProRes 422. The quality is high. Let's say OK. Now this should be ready to go. Now I'm going to say OK. So the next part is you go to output. So we've checked best settings, QuickTime, and with the output uh, with the Apple ProRes 422, and then we're outputting to we'll just output. I'm not actually going to render. Well, okay, I will. I'll render it and then we'll walk away. So I'm going to go ahead and render it. And from here, it hasn't rendered yet. I've set, it's like Media Encoder. It's set up the rules, but you need to press play. So I'm going to go over here and say render. Now I've just done this, so it's going to render pretty fast. But if I hadn't, it took me about 5 minutes to do that. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to find in here, I now have a nice high quality video. The 3D looks great. The illustration in the background looks a little janky, but overall I think it's not a bad project.